Can I ask if you are speaking, you turn your mic on, please, and when you finish, you can turn it off. Gives you a problem with the recordings otherwise. So welcome everyone. I'm just going to give you a little slight introduction. I attended Cabinet, which the Chair now does attend Cabinet, on the 26th of September. The 24-25 annual report was received and fully endorsed by the Cabinet. The recommendations of the Education, Employment and Sub-Skills Committee was considered. However, the item was deferred until an action is delivered to explore the piece of work further. Therefore, the committee is not receiving a response on the recommendations as the decision has not been determined. Rachel?
Yeah, can I just get some clarification on what happened there? Because I did watch the meeting on YouTube, and that's where I met you before. But I wasn't sure whether Mayor Houchin's objection was to the recommendation coming from Scrutiny, or whether it was, or from one of the working groups, or whether it was an objection to actually engaging with young people, you know, the actual action. And can we get any clarification about what that was? Because it was really, when he was talking, it was really difficult to pull out what his... It was really confusing, to be honest, and it went on for quite a while. It went on for
Geordie was there, you might have a better...
I mean, my understanding was it wasn't actually, I don't think it was either of those. It wasn't any objection to anything coming from Scrutiny or necessarily to that issue. It was more of a, Stockton in particular raised about some potential additional work they thought could be done that should be considered before a decision should be taken in regards to work ongoing by Directors of Children's Services, also some analysis of existing arrangements that may already be in place across the region on new services, but also I think in particular, it may be therefore down to me, I made the comment about a number of CAs have developed either youth forums or youth combined authorities or youth engagement mechanisms. Some of those have been very big failures and some of those have been very big successes. So I think the idea is also to go away and have a bit more of a detailed look at what's fed some of those failures and what's fed some of those successes. So there's a lot of work I think still to be done, and all of that will then be brought back to a future meeting for consideration, along with obviously what the Scrutiny Committee has already recommended. Have I got that right, Tom?
Yeah, so I think the principle of engagement is absolutely what the combined authority should be doing with young people and the wider community at large. I think, as Jodie said, there was a question around making sure that we're dovetailing into everything that already exists. So I think probably most of these local authorities have engagement with young people. So the action was that we've taken away to have a conversation with Mike Green, Chief Executive Stockton, who has agreed to sort of bring together all of the Directors of Children's Services. So we understand what already exists, and then we can think how we can best dovetail into that.
I think my concern is that the recommendation, now I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but the recommendation was for the TDCA to explore developing a youth forum. Well, that's exactly what's happening by having those conversations with the DCSs. So, in which case, the decision could have been agreed. You know, why is it being deferred to then decide whether to set up? The conversation we had was for the TDCA to explore looking at that. The exploration has now been is now happening, and it just seems a bit pointless deferring it. I mean, it's great if it's going to come up again, and to be honest, I'll be happy to attend that meeting. But it just seems a bit pointless to have done that. I thought Mike's suggestion was a really good suggestion in terms of dovetailing in all that's happening elsewhere, because you know we don't want to drag young people in particularly for a pointless exercise. You know, it makes sense to engage with young people who are already engaged with services and stuff, but it just felt a bit like, to me, as an outsider watching that on YouTube, it felt a bit like arguing against it for argument's sake, when actually all we were asking was for the TVCA to explore looking into that, and that's what's been agreed, and it's been deferred a decision on.
I was at the meeting there that, for those that don't aware, new members, that Education Subcommittee recommended that TVCA set up a youth forum so we get the opinions of our young people in the Tees Valley. It was brought to Cabinet last week. The 5 Cabinet members all voted in favour. Sorry, 4 did. One didn't turn up. Put his apologies in. The Mayor used his veto to overrule that decision. And I think the Mayor was just concerned he didn't have enough details on what the proposal was. So after a long discussion, it was agreed to put the decision off rather than veto it or vote for or against it until a future meeting where more details can be explored. Jim?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. I've heard 2 different expressions used. I'm trying to work out in my own mind which one's more accurate. Did the subcommittee ask to set up the youth forum, or was that a recommendation, or was it asked to explore us?
Yeah, I think the committee was asked, the cabinet was asked to look into setting up a youth forum.
And that, as I already articulated, that seems to be what's happening. So it just seems semantics to me.
Yeah.
And obviously it's not for us as officers to talk for members of the cabinet and the mayor, but if it's helpful, I think the key thing that was the difference was it may be that sort of looking into setting up the youth forum. I think from the message it may not be what necessarily need to do if there are already things out there in existence. So I think from what Cabinet is trying to get to is, well, let's look at that first before we then decide whether we need to explore that in more detail. Now, I'm only obviously there for trying to assist him in the thinking I think was behind that process. But I think it's fair to say, like, as I've said, I'm aware of a couple of CAs that have looked to establish youth forums, and they've had a very negative impact on youth engagement. So I think it's really key that that's just also considered in that wider piece. There may be things, like I said, that are already in place. So can the constituent, can the CA support constituents and other parts of the system more widely with what they have, rather than looking to creating or pulling something else together. But so I think there was a bit of there needed some more reassurance around that element, and that was maybe behind the reason to defer. Let's get that information, and then we've all got everything to consider.
Okay, so can I just clarify then? When it's been deferred until January, is that right? What is going to come back in January then?
So I think we said we'd bring it back to December Cabinet, didn't we, Jodie? From memory.
Potentially. 2 meetings, I think.
It may have been January.
So the conversations have already started. So Sarah Walker in my team has already started to have conversations with Mike, and I know Mike sort of put the feelers out. So the work's happening, and I think, as Jodie said, it's trying to understand what already exists, what value there might be from something else, or could we utilise existing structures, and all that will come back together in a paper, I guess, that summarises all of that.
Lynn?
Okay. This is on a separate issue. Sorry. Anyway, you can hear me. So this is on a separate issue. You said that one of the cabinet members was absent. Is it not possible to find a substitute? It just seemed to me that, if that is the case, one of the areas of the TVCA authority is not being represented. And secondly, is there an external monitoring officer as well as an internal?
So I was just going to raise the point on Cabinet. They do have substitutes. It's just on this occasion it was a late notification, so we weren't able to get the substitute in time. But usually with advance notification like yourselves, we would.
And very quickly, it's interim. So I'm here in an interim capacity.
Yeah, sorry, poor vision.
No. So if I take mine off, I can't see it from here. So.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, no doubt that will come back in future meetings and we'll discuss it from there. I'll move on. Apologies for absence.
Sure you can all hear me anyway. So Councillor McCabe and Councillor Hannaway, however, Councillor Morris is attending on behalf of Councillor McCabe.
Do we have an update on the Hartlepool Borough Council's nomination?
So we've received notification that they've approved the replacement member. Obviously it's subject to ratification at our end, and this meeting was too close to pass the process, so we should have full committee by November meeting.
Thank you. Just for information, Hartlepool have obviously had a by-election, and so the political balance has changed, so we're waiting for a new committee member, as I said, hopefully by January or even before then.
Hopefully November.
Hopefully November, we'll have a new committee member. Any declarations of interest? Thank you. The minutes of the meeting on the 10th of September, can we approve to record?
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. Mayoral question times.
Chair.
Oh, sorry, Rachel. Sorry.
Sorry, I did have a question on the minutes, but I just come back to it because I've marked it somewhere. Yeah, there was 2 questions on the minutes actually. The first one was on page 4, where Councillor Pallister sought to understand the appointment term of the Development Corporation chairs, and Tom, you said you'd review and come back to us. I don't know that you have come back to us.
Yeah, apologies, I didn't see that in there, so I'll pick that up straight after this meeting.
Thank you, thank you. And the second point was on page 5. I don't know whether it was an error actually when I was reading through last night. It talks about at the top paragraph, it says the 5 committees would allow areas of urban issues to be reviewed, but it was in relation to rural areas. So I don't know whether that should say rural.
That was probably myself.
I'm sorry, Connor. I should have picked that up before. Thank you.
With them amendments, can we agree? Rachel?
I'll agree.
Yeah, thank you. Very kind, thank you. Mayoral question times. Now, this meeting's been in our diary for a number of months. Sadly, last week or the week before, the Mayor put his apologies in for this meeting. The purpose of this meeting today was for mayoral question times. So the Mayor's not in the country, I believe. So what we've agreed, I've spoken to Connor and Jodie, and we've agreed to ask the questions anyway. I'm not entry chairing the Mayor as such, but we're going to ask the questions. Connor's going to write the questions out, and we're going to get them to the Mayor's office, and we're going to require him to answer the questions in writing. Once the questions are answered, then they'll be published in the normal way. So I'm going to go around and invite councillors one by one, as we normally do with the mayors here, to submit the question. Some may have already put the questions in writing. So it's obviously, can you make sure you use your mic clearly if you've got a question, because Conor will have to obviously word the question totally correctly for the Mayor. And I'll start from this side. Yeah, if I can start with you, Jim, please.
Thank you, and I do have a question. And just as a preamble, but not a long preamble, I'm interested in better understanding the financial relationship between the combined authority and Teesside Airport. So the specific questions that help aid that would be: what loans has the TVCA made to Teesside Airport? How much is still outstanding on them? And how much does the TVCA pay to the airport for its offices here?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. We'll move on. Ian?
Thanks, Chair. I have several. Maybe quick ones.
Okay.
I've been receiving correspondence from a resident who will be known to officers who makes quite a few complaints and freedom of information requests. A lady called Helen Taylor, and I said I would ask today. She made a complaint and was told by TVCA officers that it wasn't for them to deal with, it was for a personal response from Mayor Houchin. She hasn't yet received a response, and it's now been several weeks, 7 or 8 weeks since that. Could we have an understanding of when that response will go to that resident? My second question is, in the media just lately, there's been some issues around the repayment of loans by STDC. And my understanding is, or not my understanding, the reality is that at the time these loans were introduced or done, it was under the chairmanship of Mayor Houchin. I just wonder what his response would be to how he's let that get into that position, and when we can expect information that would relay that these loans would be paid. Third question is, for 2 years now, the independent auditors have not signed off on Tees Valley Combined Authority accounts, and that the accounts were put in late. Could we have a clear message from Mr. Houchin on why that is, and when we can expect to see a set of ratified accounts for Tees Valley Combined Authority? And I know that he's already said that there's an issue about paying bills on there as well, so just want some clarity on that. And I think I'll just leave it at that, Chair. I've got a couple of others, but I think that might be enough for now.
Thank you, Councillor. Jim?
Councillor Hazeldine's used my bandwidth, I'm okay.
Thanks, Andy.
Sorry, did I start looking at your notes?
Thanks, Andy. Tony?
Nothing for me, thank you, Chair.
Lynn?
Nothing for me today, thank you, Chair.
Rachel?
I've got two.
Okay.
So my first one is kind of related to what we've already been talking about in terms of scrutiny of the mayoral development corporations. I understand that the Middlesbrough panel, not that I represent Middlesbrough, but Middlesbrough Scrutiny panel invited the mayoral development corporation from Middlesbrough to go to the scrutiny panel recently, and they refused to attend. I think we could do with some clarification from the mayor on how we're going to be scrutinising the mayoral development corporations, particularly from my perspective, particularly Hartlepool, Bubbles and Middlesbrough.
I'm not certain that's a mayoral question actually. Jodie might get answer that question.
Yeah, a bit of clarification. So obviously a scrutiny and accountability of mayoral development corporations is a responsibility for this committee.
Right.
It's not a responsibility, it actually sits with the scrutiny committees within constituent authorities. However, of course, constituent authorities, scrutiny committees can request whoever they feel they need to attend a meeting as a witness to engage and support them on a particular topic. It's a conversation we've had with the mayor, with the chair. As the mayor then chair. In regards to whether there was real clarity therefore around that request. If that request was around about holding to account the MDC, then I would absolutely have expected them to have pointed out that that's not within the remit of that body. But if it's the clarity was actually around supporting them doing another piece of work, then I would have expected the Mayoral Development Corporation to have engaged with the mayor in regards to the appropriateness of that, taking advice, and then obviously taking a decision on whether they were going to attend that meeting. And obviously we would want to encourage the delivery of open scrutiny functions in our constituent authorities, just like we would in our own combined authority setting.
Can I just say that we'll move that question to the mayor, because it's not really a question that the mayor could answer really. It's more of a.
Can the answer still be minuted though?
Yeah.
Of course. Is
Yeah.
that all right? Thank
Yeah.
you. Sorry, I've turned my microphone on. Have I turned it on? Yeah. And my next question then, which is my question. The new leadership of Hartlepool Development Corporation is focused on ensuring the success of regeneration within the town centre. We are conscious in Hartlepool in particular that there's lots of residential properties within that area. We've got local councils that are local councillors are wanting to utilise Article 4 directions to limit the use of HMOs and things like that, but it feels like we're not, that we push back from the mayoral development corporations. So I'd like some clarification from the mayor as to what he's planning to do in terms of limiting that, and whether he's planning to engage with the Article 4 processes that we're undertaking.
Just a brief point, obviously it is a question,
Yeah.
but to my understanding it was last December, HDC agreed to adopt the HMO Article 4 element. So I believe that the board and Development Corporation
Is that the
itself,
same in Middlesbrough as well then?
I believe it went to both at the same time. Tom, please do correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm certain that the Development Corporations have already agreed to adopt it.
Yeah, so there's been discussions with both councils around trying to ensure a consistency of approach across the wider planning area and the HDC and MDC areas.
Right.
But we can certainly take that question away and make sure you get a written response.
Yeah, can we? I think there's some confusion within the local authorities.
Tom, will everybody see that response, yeah?
Yeah, all the questions, all the answers will be publicised. Yeah. Don?
Thank you, Chair. This will be some repetition because I'd like to copy and paste some of one of Ian's questions, and that's around the most recent sets of audited accounts. Fairly simply, I believe that they haven't been signed off yet by the authorities registered auditors, Ernst & Young.
No.
So my question is, if not, why not? If not, when? And the when, will that be reported within the best value notice? So I guess my overall question around that is, Ernst & Young is abbreviated EY, so my question is E, why?
Well done. Thank you. Councillor Branson?
Is that on? Yeah, yes. Right. I have two questions, both related to transport, one general, one specific. The specific one is really about Tees Flex, and I wonder if the Mayor could tell me how many people have used Tees Flex last year, and also what the cost per person is of the Tees Flex system. That's the first question. The second question is, more general one, what performance targets have been set to improve transport connectivity in Teesside over the next 5 years? Did you get those down? That's right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Branson. Councillor Morris?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Something that originated from Councillor Saunders in Middlesbrough, a question on a performance arts venue, which Ben has obviously mooted that he'd like to have. Suggestion would be that some of the MDC buildings in Middlesbrough that it's responsible for, could they be adapted to a performance arts venue, such as bins or maybe purchase of Debenhams or a similar building? It could be in any of the Development Corporation areas, but I'm using those as examples where I know they are.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ian. Lynn?
Yes. Does the Mayor have any intention to speak to and take questions from constituent authorities in order to explain his future plans?
Thank you. Lynn?
Yeah, I mean, mine is, I've got two questions, but one's very similar to Jim's. So I think we all agree that we want to see the airport succeed in terms of economic benefits, job creation. We can all get to holiday destinations easier, attracting more businesses. So I do understand the need for Tees Valley Combined Authority to provide investment into the airport. However, we do need assurances that the large sums, and I'm not sure, I can't get my head around how much we've actually given to Teesside Airport. There's all different figures. I wasn't really happy that the small UK Shared Prosperity Fund, 6 million went straight out, because some small businesses need that funding, and we're not given, in my opinion, we're not given enough to small businesses in terms of start-up grants. But nevertheless, so we do need assurances that the large sums of investment made will in time bring returns to that investment, the investment we promised. So my question is, how do Scrutiny, how do the loans to the airport work, and when do we expect them to be paid back? That's my first question. My second question is more wider on procurement. So we're dealing with, in terms of Tees Valley Combined Authority and all the development corporations, we're dealing with millions and millions. But I'd like to know, we have an area that is, I mean, we have high levels of poverty, really high levels of poverty. And I'd like to know how we scrutinise and how we look at what social returns, social responsibility is given in terms of, when we do it as a council, when we procure services, or we take on, I don't know, we're building houses, we ask for social returns on that to give back to education and employment initiatives, something that will address poverty in the area. I'd like to know how Tees Valley Combined Authority do that through all the investment we give out, and how do we monitor that as well, the impact.
Yeah, so what you want is a mayor's opinion on that rather than
more than his opinion.
Well,
I want to know how. And if we aren't doing that, we should be putting some of that, when they're giving investment out to all these big
yeah, no, I totally understand that.
How does that come back to
it's a question we could ask Tom equally, isn't it? Because Tom is the chief executive. Yeah.
Yeah, we can. I mean, we absolutely can provide that data. So either if it comes back through officers or through the mayor, we'll absolutely give you the answer to that.
And do we continue to look at that to see if we could do more?
Yeah, so we're doing a whole piece of work on procurement actually around exactly that and how we ensure we are complying with the new regulations. So there's a whole piece of work around procurement that absolutely encapsulates that.
I think on that point as well, Councillor Pallister, I'll send you the papers of the STDC subcommittee that looked at social value procurement around Tees works, so it can give you an understanding of what scrutiny they've already looked at and some of the discussions they had, but I'll send that over after the meeting. Of course, I'll send it all.
Thank you, and I have a question. I've only got one, which, are you ready? Yeah. Why has the TVCA suddenly changed their minds about funding plumbers to MEMA for the Turner Prize? So I'd like Ben's opinion on that. Okay. Anybody got any other questions before we move on? No, thank you very much. We'll move on. We'll move on to the terms of reference review. Terms of reference needs to be agreed. It's been agreed with the chair and vice chair, and it's been reviewed by the monitoring officer and the scrutiny officer. It blends in the requests of members and addresses internal audit responses to ensure it's supportive and it documents. It's just a supportive document to the committee. Sorry.
Just very simple points. It says that the subcommittee group set up that the chairs will be known as rapporteurs. I had to look it up because I thought he wanted me to sing.
I'm sure you can do that.
Sing if you want it.
The rapporteur's key task is to analyse the project, consult with specialists in a particular field, and with those who could be affected, discuss with other members within the committee, and recommend a political line to be followed. All of these considerations flow into the report they submit to the committee. I didn't realise I was getting such a big job, but I understand it and I get it. But that defining role there is too specific for a role of a scrutiny person.
So I think the definition that you found might be a bit more onerous than the intention.
I get that. There is a shorter version.
Yeah, so on page 2 of the draft is where we put appoint rapporteurs to shadow cabinet portfolios, which was more in line with what you discussed at the last meeting, where you said more reactive to the situation, not necessarily all subcommittees running at once, but you could attend relevant meetings, or Councillor Branson could attend relevant meetings of Transport Committee and sort of be a bit more of the outreach element of the scrutiny.
I do get
if it's
it.
not clarified, you can ask, we could amend it to be a bit clearer that we're not asking you to be in the office every day. We want it to be a bit more structured, but if you do want to include the singing provision as well.
Or a dinosaur, you know. And the other points that I mean, the things are quite better than they were. But something I think needs explaining, and it's on page 1. To take into account the resources available to support the programme and avoid establishing priorities for which the costs exceed the likely benefits. Don't get it. And avoid initiating inquiries at a time or in a manner which disrupt the effectiveness operation of the combined authority or unnecessarily delays conduct of business. That doesn't add up, because scrutiny's role is to effectively look at stuff. And if you want to look at it before it goes to cabinet, you've got a line in here that says, "No, you're not doing that." So I still see gates. I mean, a lot of open, a lot of still, half open, but there still seems to be 2 points there that would put a gate up in front of what scrutiny do. And the other thing is, and I've asked for quite some time, is what are the resources for scrutiny? At the moment, it would look like it's just the officers and time. It doesn't say, like in local authorities' constitutions, some of them, you've got £1,000 to bring an expert in, you've got 300 quid, and there is funds available. There's no sort of clarity on that, and I would hate for that to be an excuse. If it's to the benefit of scrutiny in the TVCA, well, you don't know if it's a benefit of the TVCA till you do it. How do we do it if we don't know what the resources are?
Of course, I should hopefully address both points. So, on the purpose element at the front of the terms of reference, that is the lift from the Constitution. So that is, as is, has been copied over. There's a lot of changes have been made further on. So I think when it comes to the point of reviewing the Constitution and making amendments to that wording there, we can then amend it, but it was more the purpose of copying over, so it's an easier review. Right. On resources, obviously you are correct that it's largely officer time, but we had the recent training with CFGS. The thing we need to have regular training is commitment from members to attend. So 30 invites sent out, I believe it was 9 attendees. So in terms of justifying, it's quite hard if we have limited turnout, and I suppose if committee asks it through the commitment in its improvement journey as well, because there is reference to training and making improvements there. We need a commitment from attendance, but also understand what you'd actually like. Do you want paid sessions? Do you just want time with officers? If you make clear what you want from us, we can always draft a business case, and I'm absolutely certain that Tom would support additional resourcing where necessary, but it's for you as the committee to decide what you want from us. So by all means, raise something if you'd like us to take consideration to it.
Yeah, I'm not aware that anything's been refused, but I'll let Jodie...
No, one of the words I looked for in there, to be fair, was unreasonable.
Yeah.
So that one word gives you discussion, debate, and then a decision, whether it is unreasonable.
Well, I mean, we live in a real world. I mean, finances aren't finite, are they? I mean, they are limited, so we...
I get that, Ian, but no disrespect to officers, but this is the TVCA.
Yeah, well, okay, I'll let Jodie or Tom...
I'll just come in first. I mean, as I've said previously, we're absolutely committed to supporting this committee in terms of what you need. I guess I think the word in there, and we can certainly look at it, is trying to strike a balance between what resource we have and what's reasonable. So I think the point's absolutely well made, and we're absolutely committed to supporting the committee. I guess it's just trying to get to a balanced position where you get what you need and it's manageable within our resource.
Yeah.
Well, just come in. Oh, okay, you're good. Sorry, I'll get you next year.
I think on page 1, in the paragraph that started the overview and scrutiny committee acknowledges blah blah blah. We go on towards the end of that paragraph. It says the members agree that for that reason the overview and scrutiny committee should be apolitical. Now that's a pretty naive situation. Even if you put party political in front of it, should not be party political. We are likely to be dealing with mutually exclusive views and so on. And the political process is to get to resolve that process. So either that should be taken out,
I think
be clarified in terms of reasonableness and so forth.
Yeah, the reason that's in Glenn is the Centre of Scrutiny and Governance say that this committee must be apolitical. And that's, you know, we're all political animals, aren't we, at the end of the day, but the committee doesn't have to be a political animal, it can be apolitical, and that, I think that's the point of that is. But it's a requirement, but the thing is, it's a requirement of the process for that to be in.
But there's no point putting something in that's unoperational.
But if it's a requirement, it's certainly, you know, that's the issue, it's a requirement. Jim?
Yeah, can I just go back to the use of that French word, rapporteur? I didn't have to look it up, but at the same time, you know, it does sound a bit like a bit esoteric, and I just wondered if we could try and have a deep think about what other term might be better used. Not only that, within the body of the report or the terms of reference, there's a long explanation about the roles and responsibilities of the chairs and vice chair of this committee, but unless I've missed it, and I've tried to reread it again this morning, there's no specific description of what the rapporteur, whatever term we modern term we use in its place. I won't say post-Brexit. I just said it. But the, you know, it needs fleshing out a little bit in the terms of reference of what that role is. At the last committee, I raised the issue of the important but limited role of the existing subcommittees, and we had that debate which led to a proposal of a model of the five committees mirroring the responsibilities of the subcommittees, mirroring the responsibilities of the cabinet portfolios. And I was particularly interested in seeing the creative place one being brought within somebody's purview for remit. Now, given this new proposal regarding the rapporteur, because it wasn't mentioned at the last meeting, given this new proposal, I wonder if I'm not precious about, you know, having a committee. If the role of rapporteur fulfills what the overview and scrutiny needs to know about that, well, it may not need a full committee, and it'll also then maybe address some of the capacity issues that people were mentioning as a limiting factor on their ability to engage with an extended subcommittee structure. So I just wonder if we can have a little bit more thinking about that, and since we've got Jodie with us for the time being, use the expertise of you know, the body in which he previously worked or is seconded from to help us with that.
Liaison member comes to mind.
I'll try to respond to a few points and then please come in on anything. So one of the key things we've been working on with, can you hear me? Yep. One of the key things we've been working on with leadership team and as part of the improvement journey is about organisational governance responsibilities. Every person who works for the Tees Valley Combined Authority has a governance responsibility to support and enable the governance framework. So you're talking about resources. All officers are here to support the overview and scrutiny function, just like they are the audit and governance function, and the cabinet. You also have obviously a statutory scrutiny officer in Connor. We're having conversations about the future structure of governance services and how do we get our statutory officer into a place where they are able to focus on those statutory scrutiny responsibilities, and they've got additional support from our governance team in regards to the committee administration and management to free them up to do that, and that is something we are obviously looking at this moment in time. On resources, you mentioned there about whether there's like dedicated budgets, etc. for scrutiny functions. I think if you go across the country, some councils have dedicated scrutiny budgets. The ones that are more effective do not, because the budget of the organisation is there about effective decision making. If you have a request, you make that request, and it is appropriately considered. There is an officer who has statutory responsibilities for the governance of this organisation. That is your monitoring officer, and they should therefore support the overview and scrutiny function as best they can and should provide support for such resource requests. The constitutional review will look to pick that up and make sure that's really, really clear responsibility of the MO in considering and supporting the overview and scrutiny in undertaking its actions. It's not just about having a dedicated budget, you also want to be thinking about training, development, guidance, advice being pulled together, having maybe your own forums, your own web pages, for example, really promoting regional accountability, and all of that again will be picked up in the conversations we're having about what resources do we have to support governance, decision making and accountability across the region. In regards to the terms of reference, my understanding is that these have been pulled together to reflect previous conversations that you've had as a committee, so it's not something I've looked to get a view on or to interfere on, if that's a better way. But I just want to remind everyone that I would see these terms of reference as an ongoing development piece. There is a governance framework review to be undertaken as part of the improvement journey, looking at the governance structure, the terms of reference of all of our committees, member role profiles, all of that, and overview and scrutiny will of course be part of that, as it is a key part of our governance arrangements. Of course this committee would be involved in that conversation, so I would naturally expect your terms of reference to evolve significantly, potentially between now and the AGM, which I think is June next year. And I'll also, the constitution review will be picking up, of course, how we can strengthen your terms of reference. We can definitely share with you, for example, how terms of reference of scrutiny committees have been developed in other CAs, what impact that has had, if any, and how that may be aligned to some other changes within the constitution and working practices. On the rapporteur thing, for example, I would expect our constitution to set out role profile, not just for the chair, vice chair of scrutiny, but also for rapporteurs and for scrutiny members, as well as your substitute pool members as well. So there's clear roles and role profiles. It's then far easier for the IRP to consider those roles in regards to allowance. It's far easier for you then come to us as an organisation and say, this is clearly set out as my role, how are you supporting me in doing this role? So again, the constitution will be looking to pick that up, but I don't know if there's anything there out of turn, have I? That's all pretty much, yeah. Thank you.
I think I'll just make one small additional point on that. So in terms of the chair and vice chair, putting a role description in, that was a specific element of an internal audit that addressed the fact that there was no clarity on the chair. However, the rapporteur element, or whichever term you prefer to take on, we didn't put a definition in because it's part of the elements to agree. So we worked with the chair and vice chair to develop this terms of reference, but it's still in a draft format for you to decide if there's anything you want to add, anything you want to remove, if you want to delegate in any way, shape or form. So by all means, if you prefer that there's a summary definition that might make it easier, whichever term you decide, by all means discuss it and we can add it in and circulate it for agreement.
Yeah, I think it's rapporteur is a new position, so it will grow as it starts, and you know, we're not putting strict rules on what rapporteurs should or can't or could do. You know, we'll learn as we go along.
If I can come back in on that, I'm just having difficulty getting my head round that and how it would work with a subcommittee. You know, because you'll have a subcommittee chair, unless we're saying it's one or the other.
Yeah, well, that's what we're saying actually. We're saying to you that now. We're saying rather than having the subcommittee, we'll have the I think
that would have been helpful to clearly state that.
Right,
you
okay.
know, in the covering report or whatever. Yeah.
I think so. The purpose of the way the agenda is set out is to discuss the terms of reference, to agree that you'd like rapporteurs, and then when we go into the work programme, that's where you can have this conversation about, you know, the value in whichever way. But I think a massive clarity point here is we use the term subcommittee, but they are task and finish groups. So again, you could still determine that you need them as and when. So having the shadow membership of people that would be interested to help you, if you decide you need to do additional review creative, you have a list of people available that would like to support you on that journey.
Yeah.
So I
think some of that is some of that's semantics in some respect. But I think unless we, I think what Ian said has given me clarity here, excuse me, because I think the danger was that we're having two things going, and you say, well, what's the relationship between them two things? And so if it's one or the other, you know, I'm easy. Long as the whole spectrum of the work of the Tees Valley Combined Authority.
Absolutely, that's why we have, instead of having the 5 chairs of subcommittees, we can't have subcommittees, because we've had subcommittees that have to be held on premises and in front of cameras, etc, etc. That's why the task and finish groups turn, so that avoids all that. So the chairs that we agreed of the subcommittees will become the rapporteurs, which is, I think there's the rapporteur, then we'll have one rapporteur for each cabinet member. Our portfolio, so that's it. Jody?
Yeah, and I was going to add, so way to look at this is where rapporteurs, scrutiny leads, however you want to look at it, is that the principle there is we're trying to make sure that you have a scrutiny lead in that conversation as we develop the portfolio positions, so we can then develop that scrutiny lead portfolio position at the same time. So maybe lots of us early on, you rapporteurs coming back saying, well, that's pointless, that doesn't work, there's no benefit from that, but you may come forward with proposals where we really can add value and benefit to those roles. So the principle here is we're trying to make it member-led, so with you guys sort of directing that conversation, you're almost in the room as we develop that. And in regards to the term rapporteurs, I was going to mention, I'll be honest, I think that was very much a Cambridgeshire thing. They led first on it, and they didn't feel that their scrutiny lead term gave them enough profile from memory, so they wanted to go for rapporteurs.
What are we in then, David?
Just, I'm going off rapporteurs, not go that way. To move on, we've got adopted principles as follows, and I think I agree with all of them in one respect, but there needs to be some clarity. Well, the issue I raised before about resources, one of them is participation in pre-policy and pre-decision scrutiny. Unless we get clarity around that with the earlier part I mentioned, we'll struggle. And the other thing is strong relationships with stakeholders, but there's no definition there for a stakeholder. And I'm thinking that we should take into consideration the development corporations. Now, you can't build a relationship with a stakeholder unless you can have conversations with them. And we've not had conversations with the longest running one since day one. So I think there needs to be clarity that we can have, for them as a stakeholder, we should be having conversations with them, and they should, respond to that. I'm not talking about Tees Works, because that's a different, they are a stakeholder, they're a different entity, but at the same time, there needs to be a relationship about the value for money from the Tees Valley to the Tees Works. So there needs to be a conversation with them as well. So rather than just saying, well, if you say a stakeholder, that's fine. We all get a definition of that, we understand that. But somebody needs to tell the stakeholders as well. So that, there is an overview of the scrutiny committee, they have work to do, it might involve having conversations with you must reciprocate. Or words to that effect. And I know we can summon people, officers particularly, but it's an invitation to the chair of the Middlesbrough Development Corporation. It's an invitation, and it needs to be understood you are a stakeholder. We're not the enemy, we're critical friends. So when you do the constitution, some wording needs to be formed in there that builds that relationship.
So obviously on the pointing around there, so fundamental paragraph 4 is just to include the scrutiny protocol as you've agreed. I can, if preferred, copy, I can either append...
You can't name them, but it needs to be...
Sorry, as in, so all of the list of the principles, I could copy over the definitions as they are from the protocol itself. In terms of the sort of wider stakeholder elements, I guess the provision for the committee's powers are in the Constitution. This terms of reference was more to have a way of working for yourselves, to say this is how you'd appoint a chair, this is how you will vote as in when you're in the committee itself, and then the scrutiny protocol you are going to adhere to it. I think in my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, your provisions and sort of the changes are probably better suited for the constitutional review on ensuring.
Yeah.
But what we can do is there was the obviously mayoral advice around development corporations, is we can create a summary of that and have it abundantly clear what that means. So if you're inviting a chair of an MDC, does that mean they have to attend, or is it just an invitation? So me and Jodie can work on that and get something out to members, I don't want to say by the end of the week, or as soon as practical, that clearly states that in reference to mayoral development corporations, the officers, how, like, just clear on roles and responsibilities there, and how you can use your powers to call them in or invite them. Would that be preferred, or do you want something in the terms of reference as well to say you can invite them?
I think we need the ability to have conversations and not be seen as adversarial. And if we can have, you know, if you can have a conversation with somebody and explain to them what you're doing and that, say, oh, would you like to come in, we'd like you to come into the scrutiny thing. If you've got that relationship built already, there's a better chance of them coming in. If we just send an invite out and say the scrutiny would like you to come, what's this all about, haven't they? They need to build up that stakeholder relationship. And there's got to be somewhere that can be developed.
Can I come in there, Ian? I've already made the request that the chair or vice chair of this committee should be able to attend the meetings of all the development corporations. Now it's not in our gift, sadly, it's in the gift of the chair of the development corporations, but we've made that request and we'll hopefully we get affirmative, me or Rachel or whoever's the chair, vice chair of this committee will be attending the development corporation meetings.
I agree with that.
Gives us a bit well, it gives us a bit of,
that's a starting point,
yeah.
But it still doesn't mean that there would be an active conversation between this committee and that person. Or there could be.
I'll come to David. I'll let Jodie answer the question first.
I think a couple of these books I'm hoping they're helpful, and you can tell me if they're not. So it's, I mean, I would see potentially part of the rapporteur role is about informally engaging stakeholders, partners, etc. that you want to involve in the overview scrutiny process, to talk them through why you're looking to get them involved, how they can be involved, what you want to get them to come along and do, and also set that grounds. This may not, it's not something I've discussed in the organisation, but I would see no reason why you might not necessarily want therefore to have a rapporteur for STDC, for example. So you've got a direct link about what's STDC doing. Scrutiny committee is aware of it because we've got a link, we've got somebody who can report. I would see that as being actually a good way of setting some best practice around development corporations. The non-statutory guidance on DCs, and let's be honest, it's appallingly written by government. It's got lots of contradictions in it, but it makes it very abundantly clear that the role and responsibility for holding development corporations to account sits with the Combined Authority Overview Scrutiny Committee. That's this committee. That is set there in the non-statutory guidance. The conversation we had with MHCLG yesterday, one of their questions in the conversation I had them on the governance workstream was making sure we're aware of that. We're aware that the body that holds them to account is the Overview Scrutiny Committee of the Combined Authority. Now, we need to develop how you do that. You need to obviously be aware of what it is they're trying to achieve, their strategic objectives. We need to develop all of those elements to enable you to fulfil that function. And I think it's fair to say, because that's a new thing from the non-statutory guidance, we need to develop all that enabling element from scratch. So it's right we do that. So any advice I'm giving to the development corporations, it would be there's a statutory function, the Overview Scrutiny Committee, they've got a role in holding you to account. As far as I'm aware, from all the conversations about all of them, they're fully aware of that. It's just a case of us just how do we best do that as a committee within our governance framework. And again, that is one of the strands within the governance review piece that I'll be doing separately, is about how do we best ensure accountability of mayoral development corporations, and be putting obviously advice, guidance, etc. Forward for consideration about how we do that. On stakeholders, completely get the point you're making there. I mean, my advice would be at this moment in time not to define stakeholders. You define who stakeholders are when you decide who you want to speak to. as a committee, you make that request and we obviously go and look to action that request. But the constitution should be obviously clearly setting up all the relevant individuals that it's working with, and we should be picking that up in our strategic framework as well. So I'm hoping that's helpful. But like I said, there's some of these things are things we've not even got round to actually kicking off as part of that governance improvement journey as yet. But it's good that they're on everyone's radar, and I think it's really important the committee is involved in driving that from a scrutiny perspective.
I'm aware we've got lots of people want to speak, but we'll go Councillor Branson first, and then we'll do Lynn and Rachel.
Thank you, Jim. First of all, I think I've just discovered I'm a rapporteur.
You are, yeah.
Nice to know. That actually involves that actually involves quite an expansion of what we do, from what I can see. I'm looking at the definition of what we do. And it does look as if one of the most important things is for me to sit in on the Transport Committee meetings, particularly if I've got to be involved in looking at pre-scrutiny of cabinet decision making. So one of the things I wanted to ask is, presumably these meetings are held in teams and not just in person, is that right? The reason being a practical one. We're at a place where we can only really get there by car. Very difficult to get there by public transport, and we only have one car. So therefore, you can see that there are practical difficulties in getting here. So I'm assuming that some of this can be done by teams.
So we'll let Geordie answer that, because
I was going to come in on the pre-scrutiny thing, but I would just say I would view the rapporteur thing as entirely of, this is about developing those roles. So at the moment it's about us, we're cementing the principle around the role. The organisation should therefore be putting you in contact with the lead officer, and facilitating that ability to obviously speak with the portfolio lead member as part of our portfolio arrangements. And then it's for those ways of working, you'll discuss and agree what doesn't work, etc. As we go forward. The key thing I wanted to come in on there was about pre-scrutiny. We've got a separate work stream about how do we enable genuine, effective pre-scrutiny, which is, as I said, it's not about a decision next week, next month necessarily, it's about something we're looking to develop 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 months potentially into the future. Now, there are changes already we're looking to introduce around the forward plan. So the forward plan should be published monthly. We are moving to that cycle of monthly publishing of the forward plan rather than quarterly. We're changing the template in regards to what we publish in regard to our forward plan, so there's far more transparency around what each item is, how it's defined, who the lead is, from an officer perspective as well as a member perspective, including defining are there any statutory consultation elements in relation to that decision. So we're providing more information, and we're driving that culturally in regard to the pro forma for submitting an item onto the forward plan. We're looking to take a paper, as I said, to December board, Cabinet, as it's called here, to add a financial threshold to the key decision definition. We're the only CEO that doesn't have that. It's really integral to fully understand what a key decision is and to support, obviously, the calling process, the accountability process. Anything that's a key decision, that decision should automatically then be emailed to all members of the Scrutiny Committee, and then against our decision-making principles, you say that decision has or hasn't been taken in line with those principles. It's not about whether you like the decision, it's about whether it's been taken in line with the appropriate principles. A key decision threshold is really, really key on that. So we're doing lots of work on our forward planning process. The forward plan as well, we're going to move away from just having key decisions in it. We will be listing every item that's going to every governance forum. So every item going to Cabinet will be in there. Every item going to Transport Committee will be in there. This committee, Audit and Governance Committee, hopefully as well, we'll build that up to include our development corporations. Therefore, there's far more transparency and oversight of what's going and when. But that's really important because then you can map the journey of the decision. You know it's going to Transport Committee there, that's for development. I know therefore in 6 to 9 months' time, that has to go to Cabinet for a decision. You can map that process as a scrutiny body. You can go, therefore, I know that's when we need to be involved. 9 months before the Cabinet decision, not 1 month before the Cabinet decision. We're also doing work to embed these considerations into the mindset of our officers. So when officers are considering how they're developing things, they will start to ask this question, is this the kind of thing that we should be taking to do the scrutiny function or the audit and governance function, as well as mapping out, I know I've got to go to Cabinet there. So there's a whole range of things for them to think about. Portfolio lead engagement, mayoral engagement, when the decision's required, statutory consultees, partnership working with constituents and partners, when do we engage the scrutiny function, should we, audit and governance committee. We're trying to get all of that as well into the mindset of our officers so they can start to plan that out. We've got more visibility now going through, for example, to our leadership team on what's going to be going to meetings, but we've started to introduce a much wider Cabinet cycle. So we know 6 to 8 weeks before how we then plan the production of reports for Cabinet meetings. That will be in place for all of our committees, just like it is for your committees, etc. that you have in your councils. Again, that gives another option for our leadership team to go, that's a good item, we should send to scrutiny and pull that out. And that is considered by CFGS to be a best practice approach to how you operate your leadership team. So try and highlight those things where you would benefit from scrutiny input. It creates much more clarity then around the role of scrutiny. You're there to sort of develop around the strategic options, or maybe elements of the strategic options in developing a decision, rather than looking at it right at the end, where it's compacted, it's less value adding, it's very reactive rather than proactive. We need to get into this mindset of organisational governance responsibility. We can't have one body in the structure that does everything. Cabinet cannot do everything. They need to call upon those resources in audit and governance scrutiny committees to develop proposals, etc., and then for them to obviously then make that ultimate decision. We need them in a very strategic mindset. We've got a big burden of business at Cabinet level in this combined authority, because they're trying to obviously do everything at this moment of time because they don't have the delegations, etc., in the Constitution to farm these things out. Now, so we want to move to that natural model where you have like a committee structure that develops strategic proposals, strategies. Cabinet agrees them. They then go back to those committees and they oversee the implementation. That way we build up really core skill sets in those committees. They develop really value-adding relationships with the right partners, the right officers, and therefore we increase the quality and content of our strategies that we're developing. Cabinet therefore know their role is strategic approval consideration. They are setting the ultimate direction of this organisation, and we've got a governance framework that supports the development and delivery of that. So I think the forward planning element and genuine pre-scrutiny is absolutely fundamental to success of our governance framework. I will add to that, I can only think of one combined authority that has nailed genuine pre-scrutiny. It's an ongoing issue in every combined authority. You probably experience similar issues in your own local authorities about how to really implement genuine pre-scrutiny. So it's really important it's embedded in the Constitution, in our officer role profiles, in our understanding, our own training and development, etc. Otherwise, we've got to crack this from across the entire piece. Otherwise, you're going to be constantly reacting to something 2-3 weeks before a decision's taken, or just after it's taken. You also need to take a step back and go, you can't do everything either. So you need to be really analysing that forward plan once it's in place and picking out these are the areas we think are of the most significant strategic importance to this region, and therefore they're the ones we're going to focus on. Because you would not add value if you try to do pre-scrutiny of 50 decisions. You're much better off doing it on 2 or 3 decisions, making a real difference, selling the value of scrutiny, changing that culture, and then that continual cycle will hopefully continually repeat. But please as well, so we can put you in contact with scrutiny members on other combined authorities, and they can share with you their experiences of really trying to get that pre-scrutiny thing working. Like I said, I think it's only Greater Manchester, as you'd expect, who've generally nailed pre-scrutiny, but they have a 12-month forward plan. So they've got that constant review of decisions. All other cities have committed to a 6-month 4 plan, we will absolutely commit to that hopefully as well at Cabinet, but that's the key. So at the moment, if you're going to achieve that, you need us to get the 4 plan into the position that it should be.
Thanks for that, Jody. We'll quickly move on. But, I'm conscious of the time, but Glyn...
That's okay, I think Jodie's answered some of the issues I was going to raise.
Chair, my apologies, but I need to go. I've got a doctor's appointment.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for your attendance.
Sophie's got to go as well, sorry.
That affect the...
Thanks very much, thank you.
But,
can I just say, on your comments, I hear what you're saying, but there's no right or wrong way to do scrutiny, and adopting somebody else's principles don't always work for you.
Before you go,
no items on the work programme from me, Chair.
Okay, now before we go, can we just accept the terms of reference with you as agreed?
After the conversations today, yes.
So before we leave, can we just accept the terms of reference with you?
Yes, yes, that's fine.
Is that fine? Is everyone happy with that?
We'll leave it in quorum, won't we?
Yeah, that's why we need to get that.
Sorry.
Oh, we're still quorum, that's fine.
Okay,
that's fine.
thank you.
With amendments.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Safe journey home, colleagues.
Can I just ask, I think someone may have a microphone on because there was loads of feedback while Jodie was speaking just then.
Yeah, sorry, I put mine on to ask the...
Oh, sorry Lynn. It was just really hard to listen. Sorry, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I was trying to...
Have you got a point to make?
It's just because I'm new to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and it was mentioned about building relationships, which I absolutely think you've got to, if it's even, you know, you're talking about through the cabinet and with officers and that, you know, I need to get to know everyone myself, and I'm sure there's other new members that feel the same, but I don't know whether we've had, I don't know whether you want to call it a round table or to come in and do presentations, and you can bring in expertise members as well to sit on that. But do we, I mean, I think it's great that we're looking probably at 9 months ahead of the forward plan pre-scrutiny. But in that development stage for pre-scrutiny, do we sit together with, not in a formal cabinet meeting, or not in a formal STDC meeting, do we sit with them and think these are the 3 strategic priorities, or this is the one we want to look at? So we have then round table discussions, bringing our ideas and sharing our knowledge and information before we even start to really get into, do we have to scrutinise it?
I think that is the idea of pre-scrutiny. I think that's the whole purpose of pre-scrutiny. But no, you're absolutely right, Jodie.
Yeah, and as I said, your work programme and the review of the 4 plan should be on all of your informal meetings as well as your formal meetings. So you've got that constant process of looking at that. Make sure you obviously through Connor as a statutory officer, advice and guidance around how you scope, plan for those reviews, those things like I said, identifying the right people to speak to. Again, a key role for the statutory scrutiny officer moving forward. So I would say absolutely yes. We just need to enable that. Now, I do just want to add to this because we obviously talk about lots of things we want to do. These are all parts of that plan for what we're looking to do, where we want to get to from an improvement perspective, and that requires work not just from us as officers, but also you as members of the committee. So it's a journey. I just want to make sure that's really, really clear. These things aren't going to happen overnight, but we've got to really, really push them to make sure that they're embedded into this organisation moving forward.
Yes.
So we'll just take the development corporations, have they ever come in and they do us a presentation on the current, the future plans, and just give us a chance to build that relationship?
But we had previous legal advice that this committee wasn't remitted to look at the development corporation. That's since changed. So obviously, moving forward, that's certainly something that we are looking to do. But we haven't done it previously because of previous legal advice. But that has since changed.
I'd also add to that, just that this scrutiny of development corporations is a new thing. So even where they sit elsewhere, I mean, there's the one in Stockport. I mean, very little scrutiny that's been done by Greater Manchester Combined Authority. That is led by the constituent authority there. Liverpool City Region again have done very little scrutiny of their mayoral development corporations, so there's not a lot of best practice out there. These are things we're looking to develop, so it's not like you've not been doing them and everyone else has been. They're just a lot of places they don't exist, but where they do, they also haven't been holding them to account or scrutinising them.
But we hope to be an outlier in that respect.
Starting point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come in and meet us all and do it.
We'll hopefully set targets where other authorities will follow. That's the plan. Okay, thank you. Can we move on to the work programme now, please? Thanks, Clint. The work, this will be fed partly by the. We had a chat with obviously Geordie that we've had at 9 o'clock this morning. So the work programme, I take it as read. Hopefully everyone has read it, but we need to approve this process. David?
I can't see any reference to the transport and environment, to the transport and infrastructure. Am I missing it or? If you look from all that's set down to
top one.
December.
Yeah, top page 2. Top page 2.
No, I realise that. No, but I'm looking at the
on the actual plan
work
itself. No, so the original was included as that was the draft as agreed, and it was to get the approvals, and we'll just, because it's a living document, it will be amended to include the meetings as and when. So it's not obviously got the meeting that we've got with officers, it's not got the meeting that we have with officers, it's just as it was, but it's a live document that I'll amend to add the meetings as and when and share with committee.
That's fair enough. So in effect, this will be updated.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can I take it we can put a line through all the detail of subcommittees or whatever we call them in here? Yeah, subcommittees.
I think the point I was making in the terms of reference is it's helpful to have the list of those that would support. So should you conduct a review, you've got a commitment already rather than redrafting again. So the members that are listed within there. So if you decide to undertake an actual review of Creative Place, you've got people to call on from the authorities that have already agreed that they would like to support you on that matter.
And what would be the remit of? I mean, what would be? Where would it fit in the structure if the subcommittees don't exist? Where are the powers to call a? I mean, surely we'd have to come back to this committee to agree to include it in the work programme, and then.
So previous delegation from the committee to what was determined as subcommittee chairs or rapporteurs or terminology to be defined is that you would have control over that situation, and I believe it would just be as simple as a discussion with yourself and the chair of the committee to say, we've identified this as an area of interest, we're going to start to conduct a review and we'll report back to the committee.
And where will that be written down?
So it should already be, and obviously either through this meeting as well to confirm that, the previous meeting I believe those elements agreed.
Yeah.
No. You get. Perhaps I'm misunderstanding this whole thing. The last meeting agreed to subcommittees.
Yes.
This meeting is agreeing to rapporteurs. And it's we need some. What is the role of the rapporteur? We've asked for that to be clearly stated. And if the role includes an ability to call a group of people together. Well, that's fine, but it needs to be.
Can we forget about the name rapporteur and just call yourself chair of the subcommittee? That
doesn't exist.
But the subcommittees do exist, but they don't have to be continuously in operation, if you like. The chair, if the chair of the subcommittee then decides, hang on a second, something's going on in my cabinet area that we need to look at. You've got. The chair of that committee then has got a committee just ready to start straight away, which is without having to wait for another 2 months or 8 weeks for scrutiny committee to approve. It just sort of gives you, you're ready and able, willing to go. Jody?
I think what the council is referring to actually is about open screening procedurals, how you're actually going to operate. So that is something that we'll be picking up as part of the constitution review, developing those. So I would view this very much as early rapporteur days, the subcommittee members. These are your opportunity to see what does and doesn't work and feed into the procedure rules that we're going to be developing. So I would expect absolutely in the open scrutiny section of the constitution, as well as having your terms of reference, the access to information process and protocol, to then the open scrutiny procedure rules about how all of this will operate. So that's all to be developed as part of that evolution journey of improvement. But I think that would be really beneficial, what you're referring to there, about how that could operate.
Okay. Virgil?
I think my understanding, Jim, is, and I've made notes of the rapporteur role. I can't even say the word. Can you please change the word?
Quite scrutiny, we did it.
Yeah. During the meeting, I've been making notes on different things that we've talked about in terms of their role. So I've got the shadow the cabinet portfolio holder. They have access to full information that the cabinet portfolio holder has, and they can call together the task and finish group of the members that are named in the work plan on the document we've got now, if required, and that they have the authority to do so by virtue of the fact that they've been named as the person who's the rapporteur. But whether we need to clarify that in the longer term in terms of the constitution, then that's maybe something that we need to work on. But it's a new role, and we're still, you know, we do need to have a job description or a role description of some sort. But that's what I've kind of gathered from what we've been talking about. It would be the first starting point of that role description. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I think
Connor?
it makes sense. It just seems very, very loose. You know, I'm the sort of person who likes it there in front of them in writing what the remit is. And you've made your notes. Yeah. Other people might have interpreted things slightly different. And I think what I'm looking for is something on that.
Yes, so I think what we can do there is, as of the last time, we have agreed the terms of reference, but what we could do is bounce around a definition to committee for you to agree. If you feel more comfortable having, as Councillor Greeley has outlined some areas, either to the committee itself or to those that are going to be rapporteurs, shadow portfolio leads, subcommittee chairs, even then you can decide on the terminology as well. But I think principally there's been bits mentioned here and there that could address it. I think the point I was going to raise is we see Appendix 1 was the work programme as was, to have this conversation to make amends, and Appendix 2 is the presentation from earlier, where there is a suggestion of another work programme, and sort of re-clarifies the baseline position. So effectively, just want to bring this to committee to ask, would you like to adopt the proposal in Appendix 2 as the baseline work programme, and then we'll have the live iteration that has the additional meetings of the subcommittee chairs, portfolio. We'll think of the terminology in between them. But if we can sort of draw it back to that area, because we're rediscussing the terms of reference, which is fine, great to do, we've principally agreed it, but we can define that outside of this. For the actual work programming, it would be helpful to see if we're going to adopt anything we've discussed earlier. So I think, yourself, Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah, 100%. I did say right at the beginning that it's a work in progress. So you know, we don't have set procedures. It's something we're going to have to we'll work with, and as we find the work, we can put it in writing as part of the rules. Yeah.
If I can clarify, then if you go right to the end of your document, that's your new work programme. Basically, that's what we're working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we adopt this, that's what we're working on.
Yes.
Forget the work programme we've just looked at. That's all out. It's what you've got on our space.
Yes. That's what we're asking for.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Tony.
Just a bit to follow up on what Jim said, please, Chair, and what you said as well, that if there's an issue that the rapporteurs are, the cinema can be snitch as well, or inform. Or informant, is that better?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Inform a reporter and everything, whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
And I think you said that if that person picks up a subject, it can go to that subcommittee that's not in existence anymore, it's a task and whatever. But my point is, what if there's an issue that spans across all of those areas, because we're supposed to be looking at it strategically, and they go across all. Your position, if I'm right, is that it'll be just one of those areas that pick up that work, when it might be that the committee, this committee should pick it up all, rather than a sub-working group, because, you know, the aim is to look at strategic issues, really drill down into them, and have bite-sized chunks that will make a difference and improve the way we act. So the plan is to improve. Yeah. If we don't improve, we subsequently don't get the investment from government and things like that. We have to reach that criteria, don't we? You know, we need to be spot on as an improved organisation, and cutting the bite-sized chunks are not getting there. So yeah. I wanted to be absolutely clear. And I like Jim, I like things written down. You know what so you can hold people to account. So that's what it says, rather than a bit of this loose definition. But yeah, thanks for that.
So, Councillor, I think what's helpful here is to say that, and I think the terminology I've got in my head for rapporteurs is thematic lead. It's quite sort of in alignment.
Can I say that?
It's so I see them as the sort of shadow element. It's not necessarily to say that they will principally and only look at those items. They're feeding information back in. So if we asked Councillor Blaze and Councillor Creevy to attend every single meeting of the authority, whilst also doing their own day jobs as well as being councillors, there wouldn't be enough time in the day. Whereas the thematic leads, maybe hopefully coins, will take more of a precedence to be that loop in. Because I could send you every paper that the authority writes, but the capacity in which to review them is limited. Whereas if we have those individuals that can provide a summary back and say, I've had these conversations, or effectively pre-answer questions, because some of the questions raised earlier to submit to the Mayor may already have been answered if the thematic leads were leading on these areas. But the committee itself would still retain the right to look at those strategic elements. So I think when we framed it, the committee is more of the board level, and then the thematic lead areas are feeding up, which is structures that are often present in LAs. And I suppose, as the committee repeatedly said, we can only try and see how it works, and if we need to develop as we go. It's why we don't want to give too much of a definition on some of the areas, because you need a bit of freedom to develop how it's best suited. So there might be a bit more for, say, transport. There is a full committee, but creative place as an advisory group. So there's some areas that might need a bit more of a direct relationship, and there's more of a challenge to it. But I guess my sort of point draws down to that the committee will still retain that full right to escalate and have these strategic conversations.
Yeah, no, I think if it does cover 3 or 4 different thematic areas, then this committee will certainly be interested. It'll certainly be involved in that scrutiny. Yeah, sorry, Jim.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful what Connor's articulated there. But can we have it in writing somewhere? But the one thing I wanted to say is that the work programme we're asked to approve now doesn't make any reference to other themes other than the existing subcommittees. And the part of that whole process was to widen the outlook, the potential outlook. Yes, some things may still need a standing committee to go into the subcommittee, to go into the detail, I accept that. But, you know, even if it's just once a year, you know, we put the other themes that are not picked up by those subcommittees as a reporting in or a discussion in the, and it's development. It's you know, it may wait till 18 months time before any of them emerge. You know, but they need to be included, even if it's just everything in the garden's great. Thanks. Next item.
Yeah. It's a completely valid point, Councillor Beale. In the terms of reference, you agreed to effectively work programming over a 2-year period, just to have that oversight where we can drop in those elements. So we could suggest that if we mirror the same meeting schedule of this year, that, say, next September there would be an update on these items. Alternatively, you could have a similar report to the delegated decisions where it's a summary, that the thematic leads, rapporteurs, subcommittee chairs feed back to say, you've had 2 meetings this month, like just, you could ask those opportunities. And as the paper does say, it's a living document, so any amendments can be made as and when. This won't structure it in the way of we'll just amend on the basis of the revised work programme, but there is still every opportunity to make amendments, and we need the chair in advance of agenda setting to agree what the next meeting will fully look like. This is just setting a baseline, effectively a forward plan almost, of you have an idea of what's coming up.
I'll just bring the Chief Executive.
I was just going to add, I think they're all valid points. I think the thematic subgroups, or whatever we end up calling them, will pick up sort of thematic priorities, but I think the point's right, there'll be some sort of organisational priorities, things like organisational improvement and the best value notice, things like the devolution acts, as it will be, that will be cross-cutting and are at a much more strategic level. So I do think the committee needs to think about whether there's some issues that are above those thematic areas. Yeah. So I think they're valid points.
Yeah, that's much better, isn't it? Yeah. Are you happy with that, Jim?
Yeah, I mean the whole point of doing it was to raise the profile.
Yeah, no,
and you know, if it doesn't at least get a mention here as to, you know, like a sit rep. Yeah. You know, of this is where we're at as a combined authority on this particular issue. It doesn't have to be a standing item. It doesn't have to be a, you know, just somewhere in the work programme that the other ones that are not formal subcommittees that have got slots on the overview and scrutiny, that you know, they have the opportunity, and other members have the opportunity of input into that.
But I think that's the reason why we're doing things the way we're doing it, is so these other issues can come to the fore.
Yeah. Okay.
Andy?
I think it makes it really important that we review the forward plan, because that forward plan becomes a critical document for kicking everything off for us. And the quality of that forward plan is going to be the key. So you get your forward plan, then your scrutiny leads, whatever it is you call them, they can alert us to what they're going to have a look at themselves, and then anything that is pertaining, it comes here. And we as a body, if we have seen something that, hey, that is overarching, we would like to look at that, then we can set that up ourselves as to how we're going to look at it. But the thing that becomes important is that forward plan, and how good and how detailed that forward plan is, so we can make those decisions. Is that fair?
We had long discussions with Jodie, and I don't think this combined authority has got a great forward plan. Even if it has one, to be honest, it certainly doesn't have much of a strategic priority, forward plan priority, and so that needs to change 100%, and we need to know what the mayor's priorities are. We don't know what they are either. I mean, it's almost impossible to scrutinise things if we don't know what the end target is. It's impossible, isn't it? So we do need to know that.
Yeah. So when will we get that? Because we're talking. The sooner we get it, the sooner we can.
Yeah. Well, we discussed with the modern officers working on that. I think it's.
Yes, so the only thing I'd ask is you all sort of appreciate that it's an evolving piece. We're obviously looking to improve what we currently have. But that is going to take time. But obviously, once all of our governance forms have agreed their work programmes, we can pop those, of course, all of that detail for the entire year on the forward plan. And obviously the work we're doing with the leadership team as well to map out key decisions, we'll make sure that all of that detail is, of course, on the forward plan. We're looking for this standard initially of making sure it's detailed up to at least 6 months in advance, because that is the general combined authority standard, but then we'll be looking to progress that, recognising that the further in advance we go, the better. Some of this is longer term. So, for example, the combined authorities approach to strategic planning, that will develop ready for obviously the next mayoral term, and you'd want to align forward plan development to that, so we have an ability to maybe even go years in advance. So if we end up getting to the point of having a mayoral strategic term plan, you can plan out year by year all of the things that are priorities for that mayoral term. So that's the ambition, but it is going to need to evolve in stages. I would just like to add, it's The thing we do, of course, still have a floor plan. It still has to take the information it's required to do. We're just looking to obviously enhance that and move us to the requirement of the monthly publication cycle initially. So we're getting into a better mindset around it, but the other elements will come. But by the time we get to AGM next year, I would hope that that floor plan process is fully in place and operational.
What we also have to appreciate is that we have a new chief executive in the organisation, we have a new 101 officer, we have a new 151 officer, we've got interviews for new strategic directors coming up, so we'll have new directors, so it's kind of been rebirthed, the whole authority. So now's the time to get in and support Tom and hopefully improve everyone's life in the Tees Valley. Everyone happy? So can we, I think we need to recommend, we've considered the matters, so can we support the work programme, please?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, should we leave that open for now? Thematic leads, do people prefer the term thematic lead or to the... It's obvious that people don't like rapporteur.
Scrutiny lead, I think that's
Scrutiny champion or...
Oh, I like the idea of being champion.
Yeah, we'll leave that open for now and we'll do some email exchanges and to see what we can come up with.
I'm easy.
Yeah, I was quite happy with rapporteur, so I'm easy again.
Don't remind me of which one.
Yeah, if anyone's got any suggestions, please email them to Connor and we'll have discussions. Thank you. Right, if that's agreed, thanks for your attendance and the next meeting on November the 19th. Thank you.
Thank you.